Europe's gas map just flipped again. In the first half of 2025, LNG arrivals into Europe surged to a record approximately 92 billion cubic meters, up 25% year-over-year as pipelines from Russia kept shrinking and storage targets tightened. At the same time, North America is set to more than double export capacity by 2029, locking in the United States as the world's largest LNG supplier, unless a supply glut hits first. And this afternoon, EU ministers backed a plan to phase out Russian oil and gas by January 1, 2028, a move that could redraw Europe's entire energy network. Here's the real picture. The United States remained the world's top LNG exporter in 2024 at 11.9 billion cubic feet per day, ahead of Australia and Qatar, and is still expanding. But Europe is no longer just buying the tankers. It's building and rerouting infrastructure, interconnectors, reverse flows, and future-ready hydrogen corridors to harden against price shocks and transit risks. Meanwhile, Qatar is executing an 85% production expansion to 142 million tons per annum by 2030 and locking Asia into 20-plus-year contracts, from China's 27-year deal to India's 7.5 million tons per annum renewal. The contest isn't just volume, it's who controls dependable pipes and long contracts. Subscribe for verified global updates. Best comment gets pinned. America's LNG boom is real and exposed. After 2024's record 11.9 billion cubic feet per day of exports, new U.S. trains and terminals are queued up through the decade. Federal approvals and FIDs moved forward in 2025, including extensions at Golden Pass, a $10 billion joint venture now in late-stage construction. The EIA's latest outlook says North America's export capacity could more than double by 2029, with the US still the anchor. But Europe has learned, tanker flexibility cuts both ways. Cargoes chase price. When TTF spikes, ships pivot toward Europe. When JKM rises, they swing to Asia. We've watched live diversions more than once. 10 cargoes rerouted toward Europe in December 2021 as prices exploded, 6 more pulled from Asia in January 2025 after the Ukraine transit deal expired, and winter tightened. US-style destination flexible contracts enable that arbitrage by design. It's efficient, but it makes European planners nervous. Spot LNG remains more volatile than pipeline gas. European hub volatility in 2024 stayed approximately 50% above the 2010 to 2019 average, with Asian spot volatility even higher. Industry and policymakers also echo a simple cost truth. LNG includes liquefaction, shipping, and regas costs typically higher than piped volumes on spot terms. A competitiveness issue ex-ECB President Mario Draghi flagged in the EU review. So, Europe is rewiring. The latest cross-border PCI/PMI list accelerates gas and hydrogen corridors, with Germany's 9,700 kilometers hydrogen core network green-lit for funding and guarantees. Multiple analyses warn of a mid-decade LNG glut as US, Qatar, and others add capacity faster than demand. In some regions, even pro-US supply houses have called this a $100 billion wave, where project timing and contract cover decide winners and stragglers. When prices slip, arbitrage shrinks, and utilization, not nameplate, sets the leaderboard. This is the part that undercuts the US swing supplier model. China's 27-year deal with Qatar Energy hardwires 4 million tons per annum for decades. India's Petronet secured 7.5 million tons per annum from 2028 to 2048. Qatar's North Field plan pushes output to 142 million tons per annum by 2030, potentially near a quarter of world LNG. And it's already adding ships to lift it. Long-dated, destination-flexible portfolios exist. But once Asia soaks up the firm volumes, the residual flex that Europe and Latin America rely on gets thinner and pricier when shocks hit. Europe's dependence on Russia has collapsed, but not vanished. Bruegel estimates Russian gas fell to approximately 18% of EU imports in 2024, down from approximately 42% in 2021. LNG from Novatek still lands in several EU ports under legacy deals, while Central Eastern members keep buying pipeline gas via Turkstream. That's the reality EU ministers confronted today as they endorsed a 2028 phase-out with carve-outs for landlocked states. Infrastructure lock-in is policy now, just not only for gas. Europe is converting parts of its gas backbone toward hydrogen, using existing corridors where possible and adding new ones where necessary. Berlin's €20 billion hydrogen core network embodies that pivot. The broader PCI/PMI list shows a continental strategy: reduce exposure to spot LNG volatility, maintain backup LNG capacity for shocks, and future-proof pipes. For US exporters, the strategic risk isn't Europe walking away, it's Europe becoming choosy. When prices spiked in 2025 H1, Europe pulled global cargoes and set that 92 billion cubic meters H1 record. But when prices soften, cargoes swing out, and the utilization of new US trains becomes the battleground. Financial markets already price this uncertainty. One major US exporter faced arbitration and investor scrutiny over spot versus contract behavior, a reminder that credibility in long-term delivery matters as much as capacity. New today, EU energy ministers agreed to gradually end Russian gas and oil imports by January 1, 2028, halting new gas contracts from January 2026 and phasing out existing ones through 2026 to 2028. The plan includes flexibility for landlocked members and now goes to Parliament for final negotiations. This decision shrinks the room for pipeline politics and pushes Europe further toward diversified LNG plus hydrogen, while keeping a close eye on contract destination clauses and security of supply guarantees. The rules of gas power just changed. Volume still matters, but infrastructure control, contract tenor, and volatility management now decide who leads. Europe is building a system that can tap LNG when needed, lean on pipelines where dependable, and pivot to hydrogen as it scales. Asia is locking in supply for decades, insulating itself from spot surges. Qatar aims to set the marginal barrel of LNG by 2030. And North America's build-out will win, only if utilization stays high through cycles. You're watching Maple States, where verified facts meet sharp analysis.